Hey, so I was just talking to ChatGPT about this video because I had already uploaded it, but then I was feeling nervous because I know the seriousness of this conversation, of this topic, um, and I don't want to be an asshole and insensitive and ignorant. So I just want to give a disclaimer that I really don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just exploring an idea that came to me a few days ago that I think could be real and could be significant, but I don't know. And I am not trying to make light of or trying to frame human trafficking and sex trafficking in a way that takes it out of the seriousness of like what's happening in reality down here on this planet. I'm just trying to expand the conversation and see if we can get more answers to figure out how to find more empowerment right now because I don't know what else to do. And I don't want to sit idly by while this planet and people are going through so many things that are traumatizing. Um, And I've found that one of the ways I feel most empowered is when I'm trying to look for answers in different spaces to bring the conversation wider and to get humans out of such a sticky place of just being on Earth and having to just kind of swallow what happens here and accept the idea that everything happens for a reason or that just life's not fair, you know? And I really do believe that there is a certain level of power, of empowerment, and justice that we deserve from the spirit realm. I do think that there's accountability that needs to happen on a greater level towards what's happening to on Earth and how to Earth and to the people on Earth and how disregarded and I feel disrespected the incarnating experience has been and dismissed. So I'm trying to do that by making a video like this and by making the videos I've been making. But I also understand that I haven't been doing research. I don't know everything about human trafficking, and I'm really coming to this from a place of just curiosity and a desire to understand more about how this could be reflected in a spiritual way, in hopes that it could honestly lead to answers that then help solve some problems that are happening in the physical. My hope and my intention is to always bring it down, bring it back to earth, bring things down to earth, and create real solutions. And the way that I feel most helpful is creating, I guess, more emotional or spiritual solutions while I can. And then once I have the money, creating healing centers and things like that and support systems, and changing policy. But until then, this is where I feel like I have some power to create a conversation. So if this is something that feels trivial to you, like it is trivializing a very serious topic, then I apologize. And I filmed this video before I'm making this, so I'm probably going to rewatch it and make sure that I don't feel like I was being dismissive in the video. But if anything comes across as not being serious, it's not my intention. I'm just trying to explore this topic. And I was talking to ChatGPT and it just made me nervous because I was just like, I don't want anything to be taken the wrong way and I don't want to be irresponsible. But I also don't want to shy away from this because I think that that helps no one. And I think that I'm seeing such a big movement towards expanding our conversations to include spirituality more in a non-religious way, in a more philosophical way, but acknowledging the way that philosophy is a science and is another way to understand our existence, and to really take that knowledge seriously. And so I want to do that because if it can lead to answers, then I think that we should. And I don't think we should be afraid. So this is just a disclaimer and a warning also that, this is what I'm talking about, and that I'm not talking about it from a super knowledgeable place. I'm talking about it from a curious place. In the video, I'm really just asking a lot of questions and saying why I'm thinking this. So that's my disclaimer. I am gonna ChatGPT said that a good thing for me to do would to maybe find some resources to put in the description for people who would maybe like to learn more about actual human trafficking and maybe would need support. So I'm gonna try and do that. And yeah, I'm just trying to be transparent because I don't want to be an asshole. So yeah. Okay, well now the video is gonna start. Thank you. Hello and welcome. If you are new, then yeah, welcome for the first time. But if you've been seeing my videos, then welcome back. I am wanting to build off of what we've been talking about for the past few days around human beings whose souls might be from other places, and what that means for Earth in terms of how we know how to be caretakers of this planet and caretakers of each other, how we can build connection with each other and support each other when we all come from different places and therefore have different traditions of healing and relationships with socialization and care. So, building off of that conversation, I, over the past few days, was seeing the number 144 a lot, which I think for me has varying significance. But the first time I started to really pick up on it and keep it in my mind over the past few days was around this idea that perhaps for the people who feel like they are not from this planet, and for the people who not only feel like they're not from this planet, but feel like they did not make the decision to be here, feel forced to be here, I am wondering, because we have such a significant trauma and conversation rising around human trafficking. I just saw 144. I am wondering, because as above, so below is the rule right now. I'm wondering if that is something that is being mirrored in the spirit realm. And I guess just to say it more clearly, I'm wondering if there are souls who are now incarnating here on this planet who were basically trafficked from other planets, from other galaxies, from other universes. I don't know. I don't really understand or know a whole lot about what it's like in the spirit realm, what it's like outside of Earth. I'm just kind of learning as I go. But I am wondering if a lot of the souls that are here were trafficked. And perhaps that's the reason why there is such a strong sentiment of, I don't belong here, I don't feel connected to be here, I don't want to be here, and I didn't ask to be here. Because something that is a common thing to say, a common thought process, especially in the spiritual community, and something that I have said myself, is that, regardless of whether you feel like you made the choice to be here, we choose to be here. Your souls come and they've got this plan with their spirit team and they decide what they're going to do down here and they come down here and they do it. And that's just the sentiment we've always had. You make a choice, you make a choice, you make a choice. And it's interesting that that is the notion that's been pushed and something that I've taken on. Sometimes I fight against it, but I know that I've said that and repeated that same sentiment. And I haven't always fully believed it. It's just kind of what I have heard, and hearing it so commonly, I think I've probably accepted some of it. But the more that I've been thinking about this idea that perhaps some souls that are here have been trafficked here and did not make the choice to be here, but were forced, or were manipulated, deceived in one way or another by some powers, and not And I don't know if I think that these powers are greater than us. It really could just be that they have a little bit more access to information that we don't have. It could be that in the spirit realm, I don't know, they understand the workings, or they've cracked a code in the system. I have no idea. The same way that people down here on this planet who traffic other human beings, I don't believe that they are more powerful than all of us. I just think that they've got access. And in some ways, I do think that they've been corrupted in a way that makes it easier to do things that should be hard to do, that should be crimes that should be hard to commit. It might be a little easier to commit those crimes because I don't know if they're fully here. You know what I mean? But I really am just wondering if that's something that people would resonate with. I don't personally feel like I have been trafficked as a soul to be here. I don't know how deeply I made the wish to come here. I don't know anything about that, but I don't feel like I've been forced to be on this planet per se. I've never felt like I don't belong on Earth. I've never felt like I'm not from Earth. I've never felt disconnected from other people on a human level. I felt disconnected from people personality-wise, environmentally, socially, all of these types of things, but I've never questioned my origin in terms of whether I'm human or not, or whether I belong on Earth or not. Earth feels like my home, at least for this lifetime. So I don't relate to that sentiment. But because I hear it so often, and especially amongst people who also call themselves starseeds, but also amongst people who suffer with depression and with a lot of mental health struggles, and people who are just having a really hard time on this planet, because life is not the greatest, not the easiest by far. I am wondering if that's something that, for people who are a part of that community, if that's something you would relate to. It's honestly just a question I have, because I've just been thinking over the past few days more about what's happening on this planet. Who are we? The ones who are here right now, the ones that are coming more and more. And I think on Sunday it's Saturday right now, but on Sunday I have a video going up around the next wave of souls that are coming in. And I was talking about how they're coming in with a different kind of karma and a different kind of trauma as well. It might be less familial, less ancestral, and more cosmic. And I think that idea would also support this idea that instead of a lot of the people here's trauma coming from their family, it coming from the spirit realm or from the cosmos, that makes sense, and that is in alignment to me with the idea that souls are being trafficked. Because if you're being trafficked as a soul, then a huge amount of your trauma is going to come from an existence that happened before you even got here. And not necessarily an existence that happened in relation to a family that you had on another planet, but an existence that happened while you were in the in-between, while you were just in the spirit realm. And I think it also makes me wonder, like, if your safety and your liberation, your liberty can be compromised while you are in the spirit realm, like, what does that mean about, like, how things work outside of incarnation? What is it like outside of incarnation? Because then that makes me question what our spirit team is dealing with. Because your spirit team is always framed as, like, these beings who are here to help you, but they're made up of other souls, and souls who have been people, souls who have been your family, your friends, souls that are guiding you, souls that you might have been or that you have some type of connection with, ancestors. People say angels and goddesses and gods and things like that. But either way, other souls, I think. And so what are they dealing with? In the midst of trying to support you and help you, what are they also battling? If the spirit realm is not a secure place where you're not having to deal with corruption and deception, because that's a lot to take on then. Because how are you really supposed to be able to show up fully for whoever you're guiding when you're also trying to make sure you're not being interrupted and you're not being oppressed and abused? So a lot of this thinking is just coming from what's happening around us on this planet right now. I'm sure everybody knows with what is going on with P. Diddy and with what's being exposed about a lot of people in power, a lot of wealthy people. And my sister was saying, P. Diddy, Eric Adams, people like that are at the bottom of these power systems that are at the top. So they have power and they have money, but they're the ones that get thrown in, when someone has to be sacrificed, they're the sacrificial lamb. And it makes sense that it's also, Black people, given this current society's relationship with Black people and how much oppression we faced. But everything happening with that around the amount of corruption that's going on behind the scenes, not really behind the scenes, it's not like any of us didn't know things like this were happening, but just to see it becoming such a widely accepted conversation. When I was a kid, human trafficking was a concept and it's something that I knew about, but it wasn't something we were talking about on this level. We were talking about kidnapping, which honestly, those conversations are probably connected, and things like that, but we weren't talking about human trafficking the way it's spoken about today. I remember the first time I started hearing about human trafficking and taking it more seriously was when people were talking about how there's a whole, basically underground slave system that is rampant on this planet, and slavery is not over, and in fact it's larger than ever. And one of those ways that slavery exists is through human trafficking, sex trafficking, and also the prison system, especially in the US. But looking at what's happening on this planet, because I really do take the sentiment as above, so below seriously, and not necessarily because I want to, because if you've been watching my YouTube channel for a while, you would know or probably sense that I have a lot of problems with these universal laws. I don't really love them. But I do think that certain things make sense. And I do think that mirroring happens. And not because that's the way it should be, but I just think that we are being influenced by things beyond us. I don't think that Earth is its own bubble where people are just making decisions and doing things just out of their own creativity. I think that we're picking up on everything that is happening, not just here in this place, but also beyond us. And I don't necessarily think that we are influencing what's happening up there. I think it makes more sense to me, given that the spiritual realm is much wider and more advanced and vast and has a much stronger history than Earth, that we would be influenced by what's happening up there, and there would be some reflection of that happening down here. I think that just makes sense. You're in an environment, it makes sense that you are affected by what's happening in your environment. So that's just what I'm thinking. And as this conversation becomes more prominent on this planet, I really do wonder if that is something we should be considering. If there are some souls here who were taken, who were forced to be here. And if so, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of supporting those souls who are now people? What does that mean, and how do we identify those people? How do we figure out where you've come from and why they've taken you from certain places, why you're here? And I do think we can look to what's happening on this planet for some answers, but I don't think that everything is a perfect crossover. Like, I don't think just because on this planet, because of colonialism, because of racism and sexism and all these systems we have down here, this is why certain people get trafficked, and because of classism, all of those things. I don't think it's necessarily a perfect mirror, So like you would be able to apply that conversation to the spiritual realm, because I don't understand exactly. I don't know fully how the spiritual realm works. I don't know what systems exist. I'm not sure what it's like up there. Um, I have experienced um, being pulled out of my body, like astral projection, like at the very beginning of my spiritual journey, or of this awakening, I guess. And I did not like it, and I did not want it. And I remember astral projection being like a huge thing, that was just in conversation a lot on the spiritual videos that I was watching during the very beginning of my journey. Um, and part of me was so curious to let it happen and see what would happen, but every single time it would begin, and it would always begin at night, usually around like 5 a.m., sometimes between like 3 and 5 a.m. usually. When it would begin to happen, I would fight it because I did not want to leave my body. And I think that the more that I think about it, where I am right now, I used to think that that was fear. I think that that was actually intuition, and I think that that was protection, because we don't know. I don't personally know what's going on up there, or even what's going on around here spiritually. I can't see through all the layers. I can just see what I can see, and sometimes I see things that aren't necessarily there, but it's just like flashes. It's just like things in the corner of my eye, and when I go to actually look, they're not there. So I'm aware that we're in a much more complicated spirit psychic space than it appears, and I don't take for granted the level of protection that comes with living in the 3D and living in a solid environment where everything is not seen, because sight is powerful. Once you see something, it's hard to unsee it. And once you see something, there's also that awareness that it sees you. And that's a bit of a thing to try and deal with when it comes to spirituality. I think that we should take all the protection we can get. So if you are someone who is new to your spiritual journey and you're trying to explore things like astral projection or just things that are out of this realm, I would be careful. It's exciting, it's cool, it's interesting, but you are alive, and you've got a life to live, and you have to live it unless you're going to not. And you don't want to permanently traumatize yourself out of curiosity. Curiosity is cool and it's a gift, but there's something to restraint, and there's something to letting certain things be unknown. So there's certain answers that we don't have, right? But there are certain things that are becoming accessible to us. And I think this conversation around origin of souls and why it's important to know where you come from as a soul, while you're incarnating on this planet as a human being, I think that conversation is becoming more accessible. And I think that it's time for us to kind of rally and begin to figure out how we're all getting here, and why. And I think that the fact that this conversation around human trafficking, and sexual violence and abuse and corruption, I think the fact that this is happening around the same time that there's a conservative movement rising on this planet, which is related to the trying to control women's bodies and autonomy through anti-abortion laws, and trying to perfect the human family and bring us back to a very traditional, though I don't think that this is actually our tradition, but I guess a patriarchal tradition of women, belonging to their, like women being subject to their wombs and to creation and to serving humanity through the creation of new life. I think that it's not a coincidence that these things are happening at the same time. And it really makes me wonder why. And, it's so interesting also that for such a long time, I remember a huge line of conversation being about the fact that we're overpopulated as a planet. We're overpopulated. There's too many of us. too many of us, not enough resources, overpopulated. People need to stop having kids. There's too many. Now, across so many countries, we're seeing that women are having less kids. And we're seeing a rise in people in governments and men in power and women who are ridiculous and insane and traitors trying to get women to have more children and trying to stop women from being able to protect themselves from giving birth and from being pregnant. And I think that all of these things can't be separated from each other. And it's just, I don't know, the amalgamation of this on Earth just makes me really wonder what is going on up there, and if that it's possible that this is something that is happening as a result of abuse that is happening to souls in the spirit realm. And I also wonder how you traffic a soul. How do you capture a soul? What are the methods to getting souls from one place to another? Like, how do you move as a soul? How does location and place work in the spirit realm? What does that look like? There's so many questions I have. So yeah, but these are just my thoughts. I just wanted to share them and get them out there and document it because I think, I don't know how quickly this is going to become a conversation, but I do think it's a conversation that we should maybe have. And I just wonder if anybody resonates with it. If no one does, then that it is what it is, because I don't feel like I've been trafficked. I don't know. I don't feel that way. But I just wonder if there are souls that do feel that way. Because if they do, then that's something that we deserve to talk about, that they deserve to have a space to explore and be taken seriously. And it also might help connect a lot of people to their souls. Because I also wonder if there's any shame. I don't know what emotions souls experience, but I wonder if they experience the emotion of shame. I was a long time ago now, like maybe 2 years ago now, on this channel, I made a lot of videos around light shadows and dark shadows. And it was because when I was standing in the shower, I would notice the shadow of my feet in light next to my actual feet. And I would always be like, what the hell? It was so strange to me, but cool. And every time I see it these days, I'm like, oh, like it's like nostalgic for me, like an old spiritual experience that I've gone past. Like I'm no longer curious about it anymore, but it makes me think about what I would talk about a lot during those times, which was this idea that we're over focused on ascension. And I think that it's actually a trauma response because of the way that we've created hierarchy when it comes to souls and lightness and not wanting to be connected to a physical frame. And so we talk about the 1D and darkness and density in such a disturbing way. Like there's something wrong with being dense. Like there's something wrong with being physical. Like that's something that you're trying to move away from. And so when you see I would see these light shadows and it would make me feel like souls are beginning to heal and reconnect with the parts of themselves that they kind of shed and disregarded as they rose through the levels of ascension. But the higher you are, and I was thinking about this a lot because I was also getting high a lot during that time, the higher you are, the more anxious and disconnected and paranoid you are. You know, have you ever been really high off of weed and like been totally out of your mind and seeing a lot of things that are really uncomfortable to see and struggling to feel connected to your own sense of reality and sense of safety, especially in your physical body? And, you know, this whole disregard of the physical body and the discussion around the physical body just being a vessel and almost like it doesn't have any humanity, or it doesn't have any, there should be a word for humanity that is not related to humans, but related to like the soul realm. But that type of concept, like, I feel like the bodies have been dehumanized in the soul realm. And so your soul body, I was talking about the soul body being really disconnected, souls being really disconnected from their soul body, and that being a real problem, because when you're not connected to your body, you're disassociating, you're wandering, you're lost, and you're suffering because of that. And so I would talk about that a lot. I don't remember why I began down this path of thinking, but I just kind of, and I haven't been making videos like this in a long time. I've been doing tarot readings for the past year. But getting back to this place where I'm just having conversation and asking questions, I think there's a reason that this line of thinking is returning, and why I've been struggling to feel committed to tarot and have a lot more questions. I think there's a reason. I don't know if it's something in the astrology that was also existing 2 years ago that is circling back around, or if something's being closed out around that, so we're going to get some type of conclusion or finality. But I mean, a lot's coming to the surface right now, so it's just interesting. And yeah, if you are someone who feels like you're not from Earth and feels disconnected from Earth in a way that is traumatizing, maybe, and it doesn't have to be traumatizing, but if that idea that souls being trafficked, if that doesn't sound absolutely insane to you, and you could see a world where maybe even that resonates for you, I would love to hear more about that, and I think you should explore that, and you don't need to take it on as your identity, because I don't think you should, because I think that's a powerful statement to adopt and be like, this is my truth. But I think that it's something to explore, because at the very least, it could just lead us down a path. This could just be one thought process that leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to the truth of what's actually really going on. So I'm just asking questions and just philosophizing, I guess, and trying to figure out what's going on, because I want to help the earth and I want to help people, and I'm finding that every way that I'm trying to help doesn't really feel sufficient, and I don't feel satisfied. So I've got a lot of curiosity, and it's making me think of that quote, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. I'm looking for the satisfaction, and there is probably a bit of a death that you have to go through before you can find what you're looking for, because the answers are usually in the dark. The answers are usually beyond your bubble, beyond your comfort zone, beyond your life, and so you have to leave that, which is a death within itself. So I'm just trying to pose these questions and see where it leads me, and see if it can help ultimately the earth, which is what I care about. I want to help this planet. I want to help people and animals and creatures on this planet, and I want to get some justice for life down here, because I personally feel like there is a disservice. Right now, the way that things are operating is a disservice to this planet and to the earth beings on this planet. And why are we trying to get rid of indigenous earth beings? Why don't we want indigenous earth beings to incarnate on this planet? Or where are indigenous earth beings incarnating? Where are they? If they're not here, where are they being sent to? So those are some questions I've got. Let me know what you think. Bye.